today's webinar is, we're going to learn about Certara's Integral, which is the data repository for all of your analysis and data storage needs. Like Sebastian had mentioned before, just some of the webinar logistics. The whole webinar itself will be 30 or an hour, but at some point there will also be a demo, which will be about 30 minutes with the Q&A at the end, and we'll also be recording today's webinar. So if you need to, you can go back and review this. And then just to give you some background on myself, I'm the product owner for Integral. I've been with Certara for the past almost 3 years now, and I've worked on Integral since joining with the team. And without further ado, let's just dive right in. So Certara's Integral repository is a cloud-based, SaaS-hosted, validated 21 CFR Part 11 compliant data and model repository with an intuitive user interface for collecting, managing, sharing, and storing multiple types of data sets for analysis. Now, in most cases, Integral can be used with Phoenix. Especially if you're say a Phoenix hosted user, you can use the Integral plugin that comes with Phoenix to utilize the NCA toxicokinetic modeling and PK/PD modeling that comes with Phoenix Win-on-Lin, and combine that with the storage capabilities of Integral to kind of give you a streamlined and secured workflow that will allow the user to connect, capture, visualize, and analyze data anytime, anywhere, while ensuring compliance guidelines are met. So who benefits from Integral? As you can see here, these are the typical Integral users: biostatisticians, pharmacokineticists, pharmacometricians, pharmacologists, and data managers. Some of the key benefits that the customers will have with Integral is, being able to make the data-driven, informed decisions. The data is secure, and you can rely on making decisions based off of that data. You can also improve on the in your operational workflows when it comes to PK, biostats, or clinical operations. You can facilitate greater internal and third-party collaboration. So you can, if you have a partner company that you work with, that you exchange data with, you can collaborate with them using Integral. You can also ensure that the data in Integral is reproducible, traceable, and secure. Using Integral can help alleviate some of the burden that your IT team would have to deal with when trying to install something locally for your company. Since this is a SaaS hosted data software. And then there's we have this policy when it comes to passing the FDA audits, basically where we have a lot of audit trail tracking with the system, and you can track when changes occurred and who made those changes, and that's easily and auditors like to see that information available. So some of the key capabilities here, like I mentioned before, Integral is 21 CFR Part 11 compliant. It's also it's a SaaS built in Amazon Web Services, so we can have, if you prefer, a multi-tenant setup, a private tenant, or co-hosted. We can bolt on compliance solutions to your existing computing environments. There's a direct URL access that facilitates kind of a local access for the users, so they can access Integral anywhere, anywhere they can access a web browser. And we also have authentication through Okta that can also allow for single sign-on. So you can use your company's credentials in order to log into the system. For security, we have role-based access, particular user types like admin, the full licensed user, a partner, QA, and then an archivist. Each of those user types have certain allowable permissions. And then in granting those permissions, you can add users to permission groups that are easily configurable by the customer. And adding users to those groups will automatically grant those users the permissions that are associated with the group. And then there's configurability. You can, we can configure and automate folder structures. So whenever you're creating your studies, when that folder gets created, it'll pre-populate the particular folder structure that you'd like to see. You can also do the same with the type of metadata that's created for those folders, such as like the phase of the study, what compound is being used for the study. That kind of metadata can be stored and tracked with those folders, and then we can archive directly into the working environment. So everything that's stored in Integral is archived and tracked. Like I said before, with the 21 CFR Part 11 compliance, that also includes audit trails of the files, which kind of provides a chain of custody, so you can see where the data originated and what changes occurred throughout that, that data file through versioning. And a lot of these changes are tracked through the audit trail, along with the user information through electronic signatures. So those electronic signatures typically get applied when users create, modify, or delete data. And like I mentioned before, you have version control for the files in the system, along with traceability and auditability of the data. And not only that, but for say like CSV files, you can see the differences between one version of a file versus another. We also have dependencies in the system. So if there's, say, a change to the source data for a particular analysis, that dependency is tracked, and you can tell when your analysis is out of date and when the user might need to, update their analysis using an updated source data set, right? And the same thing goes for creating copied files and creating links for those copy files. So if there's a source for that linked copy and it gets updated, you can also update the copy that was created from that original file. And we also have a centralized data repository. So we have a single source of truth that simplifies the management of the reusable code within Integral. And also it allows for, it facilitates a QC review process. So your auditors and QA users, can easily go through and view the files, and then and the audit trails for those files and any other information captured with them. There's also compatibility. So we work with both cloud-based and on-premise computing environments. We support all modern operating systems like Windows and Linux. We're agnostic to analytical software being used. So, we have the Integral plugin, which can be utilized with Phoenix. And then we have the client application that can be utilized with Piranha, SAS, R, Python, and other hosts of softwares. We have vendor hosted benefits. So all the validation is done by Certara, and any Integral updates are based on user feedback. We 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, our help desk can help with the maintenance, support, and professional trainings for all of your users, and we could rapidly deploy Integral as well. So typically Integral could be implemented within about a month for your system. And then there's also the collaboration, where we have system APIs and Certara service groups. that support custom integrations. And then, this also eliminates the needs for FTP sites and email data exchange with other vendors. So we can provide a collaborative working environment for both your internal users and external users without the need of a VPN. Now this slide represents kind of a simplistic architectural diagram of how Integral works. So starting at the bottom, this is the user's workspace. The user would connect as they normally would to their computation environment. So say they either have Phoenix installed on their local laptop, or say they are logging into their Phoenix hosted through the Amazon Web Services. So all of that would be done, at your computing environment. And then a user could install the Integral plugin for the Phoenix when on LIN to mediate the transfer of information between our Amazon Web Service cloud and the computing environment that they're using. So the Integral plugin will allow you to, access Integral through Phoenix. As you can see here, you can use Phoenix, and then through Phoenix you can access the Integral plugin, the Integral data repository. You could also do the same for using the Chrome web browser, and that's another way of accessing the Integral data repository. So all of this kind of allows the user to perform an analysis, especially with Phoenix. This allows the user to perform an analysis through Phoenix when on LIN and save that analysis and its results to Integral where they can be securely stored. Okay, and now it's time for the Integral demo. So let me just bring up my Phoenix. So currently this is the Phoenix I have installed on my local laptop, but this could easily also be the Phoenix that's a part of Phoenix hosted, going through Amazon Web Services. Now you can see here I have this Integral plugin, which we can click on, and you can see here it opens up this browser, and the first thing the user would need to do is log in. Okay, so you can see here we are within Integral, and you can see here I'm kind of applying this type ahead filter that can kind of allow the user to you have all of your studies stored here, and then if you want to you can either navigate through just the scroll bar here, or you could do a type ahead like I'm doing. And as you can see here, I've already kind of created a study folder here called Demo 22 February 2023. So the particular demo I'm about to do is for your general PK scientist. Basically, we have a study that was done at the clinic, and they provided us some data that we'd like to use for an analysis. So the first thing the user might want to do is create a study folder. So as you can see here, there's this plus button. When you click on that, the user can select a particular folder type to choose from. For our purposes, it would be study. And then as you can see here, we have all of this metadata that we can choose to enter for this particular study. So the first thing you would do, of course, is enter the name of the folder. And then, you could go and select, maybe the phase of the study design, enter in the compound. Is this a clinical, preclinical study? And all of this is also configurable. Especially if you're creating your own version of this particular study folder. This is kind of an out-of-the-box study folder that'll be provided to anyone who first, has access to Integral. So once you have all of your metadata entered, you would click Apply, and then you would create this study folder, right? So you can see here, you have all the information, all the metadata here captured for your study folder. There's usually a contents tab that shows you all of the subfolders within. There's a history tab. This is where your auditing information is tracked. You can see like the events that occurred within this root folder or study folder. You can see that the time I created this folder, and you can also see at some point I uploaded a template file to this study folder, and I'll show you where I did that in a little bit. You can also see here there's a drop down here for the properties, and you can see what properties were entered by the user and at what time. And then any changes to these properties will be tracked here. And there's also a tab here for the security permissions. So you can see that under effective user permissions, we'll have a list of the users in the system along with the permissions that are granted to those users. Now, let me go ahead and just maximize the window here so you can see. So this will kind of give you an eyes view of the type of permissions that users will have for this study folder. There's also group permissions. When you can take a look at that, you can see the type of groups that have been created and the permissions that are associated with those groups. So whenever a user is added to that group, they are typically granted these these permissions that are associated with the group. But first, let's go into the different subfolders here. So this is a typical study folder. So we have our data folder here. This is where users would typically upload their source data for their analysis. You have a documents folder here that the user could store any templates for their Phoenix projects or any documentation such as statistical analysis plans or clinical protocols that give the users any information that they might need for their analysis. And then we have the analysis folder, where this is where we will create and store our analyses moving forward. So the first thing we need to do is we need to upload some source data. So I'm going to go to the data folder here, click on this ellipsis menu, and select upload files. Now you can see here with this ellipsis menu, there's many things we can do. We could add subfolders, edit the metadata for this folder, delete the folder, upload files, as well as lock all of the files within the folder. But for today, what we want to do is upload our source file. So first thing we can do is we can either, if you're in the web browser, you could drag and drop the files that you would want into this little window that opened up here. But for now, what I'll demonstrate is that, if you don't want to drag and drop, you can also click on this, and then you could navigate to the folder that you need to navigate to. And so you can see here, I have this demo data folder, and I want to upload this Clayton data set. This is going to be my source data for my analysis. So I select it. You can see it shows the file here, and you could upload multiple files at one time if you'd like. It'll list all of those files here along with the size of the file. So once I have the files I want selected, I'll click on upload. So this is where the electronic signature will be applied. Now for out-of-the-box users, there will be some default reasons that they could select. For right now, based off the example here, it looks like there's this audit reason training reason that's stored in the system that I could select if I wanted to. I think in most cases, you might have some defaults where it'll say uploaded file, updated file, saved file, something like that. So you can have reasons stored in the system that you could choose to select, or you could enter in the reasons manually, and that's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to do upload file for analysis, and then I'll click on sign, and then I'll enter in my credentials. And as you can see, the file has been uploaded to Integral. And if you click on the file, you can see in the contents tab of the file, you can actually, since this is a CSV file, you can view the data within it. Now keep that in mind that this doesn't work for all file types. This typically works for comma delimited files or images. So for right now, as you can see the Clayton, it's a CSV file, so we can see the data from the Clayton file here. We can also change the view where, instead of going through each page here, we could select, all data, and then the user could easily just scroll through the data if they wanted to. And then same as with the folders, there's properties associated with the file. So you can see here, this is revision 1, the size of the file, whether the file's locked or blinded, the name, and then any other properties associated with it. The files will also inherit properties from their parent folder that they're stored at. So you can see here, these are some of the inherited properties from the root folder, which would be demo 22 February. And then for the history, like I said before, this is a part of the audit trail. So you can see here we have revision 1, and we've captured when I uploaded the file, which in this case, the action's called inserted. And then you can see the reason I entered. There's also an option here where you can download the file if you need to. And then you can also see that any properties associated with the file for that particular revision. Okay, so now I have my source data file, and I also have my template that had already uploaded previously. So now what I'd like to do is create an analysis. So I'll go to the analyses folder, click on the ellipsis menu, and you'll see that there's this option called add save point. So, and just to kind of clarify what save point is. So a save point is like a captured moment, a snapshot, if you will, of the analysis at a certain time. And as we you can consider it like, a revision of an analysis, right? So we're kind of creating revision 1 of the analysis, and any source files that are captured with that, as well as any results that are captured with that. So when I click on add save point, we'll get this menu where we can enter in the name of the save point, as well as some metadata associated with the save point, maybe some description. And we can also select the source files that we want to use for the analysis. Now, these source files are going to be dependency files. So the analysis is going to be dependent on the files. And I'll show you what that means here in a little bit, how critical that dependency is. So for example, I'm going to type in test 1, and then I'm going to select the files I want to use for my analysis. So in this case, I want to use Clayton. And then I also want to bring in the template for this analysis. So I have both these files selected. I'm going to go ahead and click submit. And now you can see in Phoenix, it is going to create a project file that contains the source data that we're bringing in. So you can see here, it's already importing in the Clayton file. And this is very similar to importing a file normally into Phoenix. So I'm just gonna change this so I can accept the data, and then it's gonna finish downloading the rest of the files. Okay, so now we can go into Phoenix. We can see that my source data was uploaded and my template was uploaded as well. So now I have basically everything I need for my analysis. So the next thing I'm going to do is run the analysis. So let me just bring this Clayton file over, and I had the Clayton set up for this data link, which is connected to all the other objects in Phoenix down the line here in this workflow. So now I'm just going to simply run this workflow to complete the analysis. So as you can see, it's processing the workflow, it's processing the NCA. And then it's going to create some plots and tables and then a report. All right, and so my analysis is now complete. As we can see, I have created a table, created a plot. My PK parameters were also created, and I created a table for these, and all of that went into my report. So this was all set up, with my Phoenix template, right? So now I've completed my analysis. I want to take my results from the analysis and save those to Integral. So the next step I would want to do is I'd go to the Integral menu here, and I would select Save. Now there's a difference here between Save and Save As. Save is where you would want to, if you're going to make any updates to a save point that's already been created, and you want to make sure they stay within that save point, then and it gets recorded with that, you would select Save. If, say, you wanted to create a different branch, a save point that's unrelated to the original save point, then you could select Save As and then just enter a different name for your save point. But for this example, this is the first time I'm running this analysis, so I will want to select Save. So when you do that, you get this this window here that pops up that contains the information for the save point. So this is the name of the save point, any descriptions that were entered, and any other metadata that was filled in. So that's this first tab here. The second tab here is called Save Options. Now this is where we're going to tell the plugin what results we would like to bring into Phoenix, or I'm sorry, bring into Integral. And we have some default settings in the plugin where the user can set some default save options, so you don't have to keep going through the same settings over and over again. So if you scroll through this, you can see that some results are already bold, and this is because of the default settings that I have. So you can see it's already kind of selected some of the results I would like to bring into the system. But to also show you, let's say I wanted to bring the summary table in as well. So currently it's not bold, which means it's not going to be brought into the system. If I did want it to be brought in to Integral, I would select it. I would enter a name for it, summary table results, and then I would select the type of format I would like that brought in as. So for this particular example, I might want to save it as a CSV. So you see, as soon as I select a format here, it'll make that result bold, and that result will come over when I save the analysis to Integral. And you can also select multiple formats if you wanted to. But for this particular example, I'll just select the CSV format. So once you've kind of gone through and made sure you have all your results selected, you don't have to, but there's also this additional dependency tab, which you can review this if you want, and it kind of just shows the user, which source files we're using as dependencies for this analysis. So you can see it's the two files I brought in before, the Clayton file and then the analysis tools template. And you can see that there's these options selected. So if any changes occur to these dependency files, the user will be notified and that their analysis is basically out of date. But for now, we don't want to touch any of this. We want all of this on because we do want to be notified of any changes. So the next step would just be to click the next arrow, and then this is just a confirmation page. You'll see that the type of folder is analysis, and then the full name of the path is it'll be called test1, and that's where it'll be stored. And then the project name, what the project name will be called. which that refers to the root folder itself. There's also this option here where you can lock the save point as soon as you save it. So this, as soon as you save it, no other users will be able to modify the save point. So if you did want that option, you need to make sure this is selected. But for this particular demo, we don't need to do that. So I'm going to make sure that's turned off, and then I'm going to select finish. And now I'm going to enter my reason. For this particular reason, I will just enter saving first analysis, right? And then we'll just have the electronic signature pop up and enter in my credentials. Okay, so now the analysis is being saved. And we'll just give this a second to finish processing. Sorry, my computer's running a little slow. Okay, there it goes. And just to let you know, normally there's a progress bar that pops up right there. I think with me sharing the screen here along with like some of the PowerPoint slides, it kind of hid that. But in most cases, you'll see a progress bar that shows up that would say it's 100% completed, right? So now the save's been completed, so I can go back to the browser and I can click refresh here. So we'll see under analyses, you can see that there's this test folder. So you can see our analysis completed, and along with that, you can see all of the results from the analysis. So our project file, and then all of the results that I had selected through the save options, right? So not only that, but just to kind of show you, so this is a save point. So I've showed you the events and properties when it comes to audits. Save point folders have this additional auditing menu here, where when you click the drop down, it'll show you the snapshot that was taken, that save point. You can see that the save point's up to date, the user that performed that. And then, if you wanted to, you could also download the Phoenix project file that was used for that analysis. If you open up this dropdown, you can also see the results or the files that were created from this analysis, along with the revision numbers for each of those. So you can see that these are all the results. And then under dependencies, you can see, here are the dependencies that we use. They're currently revision 1 and they're all up to date. So everything looks good for this analysis, right? So say, for example, our clinic screwed up with the data that they collected, and they need to send us a new data set to use for our analysis. So for that particular scenario, we need to update our source data. So in order to do that, if you click on the CSV file in the ellipsis menu here, there's now this new menu option called Upload New Revision. So I'll go ahead and select that, click in here, and as you can see, we have this Clayton version 2 file where there was one update made to one of the data points, and I'll show you that here in a bit, but we'll go ahead and select this version 2 file. We'll upload that, and it will ask you, if you're sure you want to upload this file as a new revision to the original. And we'll say okay, and then we'll enter our reason. Sign. Okay, and as you can see here, there's a, the audit tracking, has this file as now revision 2, and it captured, when that was done and the reason for that. And if we were to click on the contents, you can view the data. There's also a way of looking at kind of doing like a comparison to see the differences between version 1 and version 2. You can see here there's this compare option, which brings up the file. And as you can see, for the difference between version 1 and version 2 of the Clayton file was that the data changed from 0.1 to 0. So if we go back to the folder, so not only we updated the file, but you can see here that the study folder is red. So this lets us know that the analysis is out of date. So what we need to do next is drill down to where that out of date analysis occurred. So if you open the folder, you can see, the data and documents folders are okay, but it's the analysis folder that's out of date. And if we drill down even further, we can see that the test 1 analysis folder is out of date. So why is it out of date? If you need to know that information, you could go to the history file for this folder and go to the save point, and you can see that the save point is now out of date. Why is it out of date? So if we go to this and we look at our dependencies, we can see that the analysis tools template, that one's still good, that one's up to date, but the Clayton file is out of date. So what do we do now? Well, we need to update our analysis using this new data set, right? Or this updated data set. So how do we do that? Well, since I already have the project open in Phoenix, what I can do is go to Clayton and then select refresh from source. You can also do check state first if you want to just make sure that this file is up to date. So say you select check state. It says the object is not current with its external source. External source and update may be necessary. So if that's the case, I'll select refresh from source. And you can see here, it's now pulling in the new data set, the updated data set. And I'll bring that in. And it now updates this Clayton file, as well as causes the workflow in Phoenix to become out of date. But everything else should still be connected. So all I need to do now is just simply rerun my workflow. I'll just give this a second to finish running. Okay, so our analysis is done, and we'd like to save over this current save point. So we'll go ahead and just select save. As you can see here, you can't change the save point name. If we had selected save as, we could create a different named save point. But in this particular example, we're staying within the same save point branch, essentially. So so if you need to, you could review your save options again, but this, typically you wouldn't have to, because this will also remember your settings from the previous save, as you can see here. So basically, we're just going to go through this and then click finish, updated analysis. And then we'll just give this a moment to finish saving. Okay, so now we just go back to the browser, and if I refresh, you can see that the folder is now blue again. So that means that the analysis was updated. So if we go back to test one and we look at the history and go to save points, you can see that a new save point was created and that is now up to date. And if we look at this save point, we can see which files were updated based off of what data was actually updated. So you can see here, we have a revision 2 now for the project files, as well as for some of these results. For the rest of these results, they didn't need a change because the data didn't change for those particular results. But as you can see, for one of these plots, the results only changed for one of them, and that was for that first subject we had looked at. So this lets you know what files changed within the system. And then we can also, if we look at the dependency, we can see that we're now using the updated version of Clayton, and that is up to date. There's also a way of looking at this information through the audit report here. So within history, we could generate an audit of any of the files within the folder that changed and why they changed. There's also specifically a save point difference report that gets generated that'll let you know, what exactly or which files exactly changed for that particular save point. So all of that gets captured there as well. And then just to show you one more instance of updating this. So say we finished working on this analysis. We don't need to, this has already been saved, so I don't need to save within interval, so I don't need to save it locally. You could save it locally if you wanted to, and then come back to working on that project, right? But in this case, I don't need to, so I'm just gonna select no and just get rid of the project. It's already captured in integral. So say another update has to occur for our source data. So for this particular update, when it comes to CSV files, we have this grid structure here. So if, say there's, maybe a small change to the data set that needs to occur that doesn't really need to be, isn't critical or doesn't need to come from other sources, you could also make changes to the file itself within Integral. So here I can show you, if you double click on one of these values, you can actually edit the cell. So for this particular example, I'm going to change it to 1 and click enter. So you can see this kind of highlights what cells have been updated. And then I'll select update here. It'll ask me if I'm sure I want to make the changes. I select OK, and then it asks for another electronic signature. And then in this case, I'll say manually changed one of the cells. Okay, so that updated, and so the file's been updated. But here's the thing: if we click refresh, we see that the folder is now red again. And why is it red? Because we changed the data for a file that's considered a dependency for a particular analysis. So as you can see here, if we drill down, we can see, oh, our test 1 analysis is out of date again. And just to kind of highlight, so if we go to properties, we can see that this file is now revision 3. If we go to the history, you can see revision 3 captured here, and the change, the change was captured, and then my reason for the change. So now we need to, update our analysis again. So for this particular example, I don't have the project in Phoenix currently. As you could see, I had closed it in the Phoenix software, but I want to load this save point into Phoenix. So if I click on the ellipsis menu, you can see there's an option here called load save point. So I'll click on that, and it'll load the save point. Now, not only is it loading the project file, it's also checking to make sure that your dependency files are up to date for the project. And if it is, you wouldn't see this message that we're getting right now. But since our source data is out of date again, you get this message, and then it asks to get the latest versions of all the, all of the objects in the project. So in this case, I want to select yes. So you can see here it's pulling the updated Clayton file again. And now, as you can see, it's now imported the latest version of the Clayton file where we had this change to the cell. And then it basically works the same way that I showed you before. It's the workflow goes out of date, and then you just need to basically rerun the analysis and then save back to integral once again. And then in that case, you'll have a third save point revision created and capturing the analysis using this newly updated source file. So there's two ways of updating your source data if it's out of date. There's if you're continually working within the project, you can either select refresh from source, or if you load the save point into Phoenix, it'll check it as you're loading the save point, and it'll let you know if the dependency is out of date. So you can see here that finished my analysis, and then I'll go through and basically save again. Okay, so as that's saving, I'd also like to point out, so there's also many other modules within Integral that the users have access to, obviously depending on their security permissions, but there is ways of, comparing files and looking at the differences between those files. There's ways of generating, audit reports. So let me refresh this so we can see everything's updated again for this analysis. And you can see we have the third save point here. And that is using the revision 3 of the analysis. So that's kind of like a general demo of the a typical PK scientist's workflow when it comes to using Phoenix and Integral. And like I said before, there's these other modules that we have that is beneficial to the user. We have a search capability. We also have the securities tab, which is only available to administrators, but this is basically where administrators can assign licenses and permissions to users, as well as assign users to security groups. There's the compare module that I showed you before when we were looking at the differences between revision 1 and 2 of the Clayton file. There's also a way of creating copies of files, as well as linked copies of files where the copy is dependent on the source data. So any updates that are done to the source data will affect the copy that was made, and you could update the copy using that link. And then there's the administration module, or this is another part of the system where it's only administrators can access this, but basically this is where administrators can help set up the folder structures for your studies, as well as the metadata. And then we also have a system audit report that kind of shows an overall audit of, like, say, who was assigned permissions, who was taken away permissions. It's more of a general audit of some of that basic functionality. But yeah, that is the Integral demo. So let me go back to my slides here. And That should do it. So Sebastian, if you want to take over, we can start the Q&A session.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Yeah, great presentation, very insightful. As a reminder, please submit your questions through the chat panel. We still have a few minutes left to cover your questions, and 2 questions already came through. So let me read this to you, Michael. First question is, can data/files be deleted? For example, in outdated analysis that should not be used or referenced.
Sure, yeah, of course. So when it comes to deleting files or folders, especially for files, you can easily delete a file, but you will have to apply an e-signature to that, so it's captured that a user did delete this file, and you can look up that information within the history tab of the root folder for that study. You can also delete folders. And deleting empty folders doesn't require an e-signature since there's no files in it. So you won't be prompted for empty folders. But if the folder contained any files, then that would also require an e-signature. And all of that gets, information gets stored within the history tab of the root folder. Now, say you delete a root folder. Well, how do I know what happened with that? That's where the system audit report can let the user know which root folders were actually deleted. And then say you needed to restore a deleted file, there is a way when you go to the history tab, you can look up when the file was deleted, and you could download that file and then re-upload it back to the system. But yeah, that's basically in general, yes, you can delete data files within Integral.
All right, great, thanks. And the other question that we have from the audience, what are the out-of-box prepared roles available in Integral?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, up at the top, we have the administrator role, which, as you could see, I had mentioned administrators are the only ones that have access to security and the administration modules, since those are kind of key modules within Integral that can change the way your folder structures or permissions are granted. So you have administrators, but basically administrators can do almost anything within the system. You have the full license user, which would be your typical PK scientist would probably be assigned to a full license user, and that usually allows and that should allow the user to have most of the important permissions when it comes to those study folders, like being able to create, edit, delete. You could even go so far as adding the ability to blind. And then there's a partner role, which the partner role is typically that's saved for, say, maybe your external customers that you work with that provide you data. You might want to grant them limited access to a particular folder within Integral. In that sense, you would probably grant them a partner license. And when I'm talking about these roles, I'm speaking of the specific licenses that you can purchase with Integral, right? And there's some licenses that come with your overall purchase with Integral too. But there's a administrator, full license user, partner. There's also a QA license for any of your QA users. They won't have the ability to make changes to any data, but they will have the ability to read and review the data within the system. And then you have archivists, which is very similar to QA reviewers, but they also have the ability to unlock data. So say your full license user, a PK scientist, they've completed their analysis and locked the folder. It was considered final. And then say something happened where we need to make updates to that analysis, but it's locked. then that's when you would, contact your archivist, whichever user has the archivist role, and then they would have the ability to unlock that folder, so you could continue your work. But yeah, those are the kind of the main licenses that are that come with Integral, and each license basically has a certain amount of permissions that they are able to be granted. That's how that works with each of those licenses.
Okay, got it. Thank you. I don't see any additional questions here in the chat, and we reached our time limit for this webinar today. So I think we can wrap it up for today. Thank you, Michael, for that great presentation. Again, we will send the recording to you so you can go back and rewatch it. Feel also free to share it. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. And yeah, thank you for your participation. Again, thank you, Michael. And
Thank you, Sebastian.
thank you. Then have a good day. See you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Have a
Bye.
good day.
Thank you.